Think about it, top talent usually doesn't go to a job market, right? Similarly, the women who enter the blind date market are generally of lower quality, yet they still think of themselves as premium sellers. When you engage with such women, it's not just about showing off your conditions to successfully match. These older single women often have a lofty attitude.
Recently, an awkward event took place in Hangzhou. I'm sure everyone has heard about it by now. At a grand matchmaking event with over 1,000 people, not a single man showed up. The organizers of the event also implemented a relatively unfair policy. Women could participate for free, while men had to pay double the fee.
Damn. This brings me back to that time in my life when I used to go clubbing every weekend, and there were always events in which girls could get in for free. And while we still felt a little cheated back then, at least we could still have a good time, even if you weren't able to go home with a girl that night. Also, it wasn't that expensive to get in to begin with. Speed dating or matchmaking events are a different thing altogether though, because if you're not able to hit it off with a girl or make a meaningful connection, you've just wasted your time and money. And I have no idea how much it costs to attend an event like this.
As a result, more than 500 women, adhering to the principle of better to be single than settle, still made high demands on men, refreshing everyone's perception. Nowadays, fully paying for a house and car has become the minimum standard for matchmaking, but what's surprising is that thousands of older single women have ended up being completely ignored. What exactly has caused this situation? Why are more and more men choosing to remain single rather than get married? Let's take a look at the fascinating story of Hangzhou's matchmaking event with no male participants. Watching this matchmaking event makes us truly understand what is meant by silent resistance.
If you've been online for any amount of time and watched any of the various relationship podcasts that have popped up, there seems to be beef between men and women, and these talks are even starting to bleed into the workplace. There's also a growing number of men who've given up on dating altogether, and more specifically, marriage, because they just don't think it's worth their time, and there's too many risks involved when it comes to divorce. So I wonder if this is the same thing they're seeing over in China.
This event in Hangzhou, which was supposed to be eagerly anticipated by both men and women, unexpectedly turned into a modern version of a women's kingdom. On the day of the event, more than 500 women waited expectantly, but not a single man came, making the scene incredibly awkward. Does this mean that when it comes to matchmaking, men have completely given up and are indifferent to marriage? In fact, today's standards for choosing a partner have quietly changed. Many older single women still refuse to face reality, instead clinging to outdated mindsets, fixated on pursuing high standards for men. At the same time, the conflict between women's rights and financial power has also become a hot issue in today's society. Some men who had considered attending the event revealed that the fees for men were much higher than for women, set at 800 yuan and 1,000 yuan.
What the? That's just over $140. Hell, am I paying $140 to go home empty-handed? That's just not happening.
While women could attend for free. Considering how hard it is to earn money these days, many men felt that the organizers' approach was quite off-putting. Reality has already proven that the prime time for these older single women has long passed, and they are no longer in demand.
I don't know what the financial status is of the types of women who attend these events, and I'm not entirely sure how people over in China manage this sort of stuff, but I don't see why everyone can't just pay a fee, so the risks are more evenly spread.
Young men without financial means simply cannot afford the high costs of matchmaking, while those with decent financial conditions have no need to attend such events, and certainly don't want to face women with overly arrogant attitudes and excessively harsh requirements.
That's an interesting point. If you're the type of guy who can easily afford these sorts of prices for matchmaking events, you can probably source your own women, whether it be in person, via social media, or through dating apps. I would assume that the kind of guys these women would like to build a life with wouldn't be caught dead at an event like this.
At this point, many women are still clinging to the fantasy of finding a tall, rich, and handsome man, only willing to choose men from wealthy families, while they won't even glance at men of more ordinary means. This vicious cycle has led to the awkward situation at the Hangzhou matchmaking event. Over 500 women were present, but not a single man was willing to participate. Just imagine how awkward that scene must have been. The mindset of modern young people toward marriage has indeed undergone significant changes. Many men have faced repeated setbacks in the pursuit of love and marriage, feeling crushed under the weight of exorbitant bride prices.
I had to quickly look up what a bridal price was, just to be sure. And from what I found, it's the money that the groom or his family has to pay to the bride or her family. And apparently it averages out at about $20,000. If I lived in China, I probably wouldn't be getting married either.
Some women have even made overly demanding requests, such as requiring the man to fully purchase a house and a car. Under this kind of pressure, many men have chosen to lie flat and no longer actively seek marriage partners. Even those men with good family backgrounds are now cautious about marriage, and some even demand that women undergo premarital health checks to avoid losing large sums of money, along with the house and car.
Just so you guys know, premarital health checks in China are done to kind of tackle any potential issues regarding getting pregnant and having a child. So I guess men want to know if the women they're about to marry can actually have children before they properly invest their time and money into a relationship. While you'll have to fact check me on this one, China took these tests so seriously that until 2003 they were mandatory.
Nowadays, the entire matchmaking market has undergone dramatic changes. Men are no longer willing to be suckers, and the deserted atmosphere at offline matchmaking events is a true reflection of this phenomenon. What do you think about the awkward scene of this 1,000-person offline matchmaking event where no one showed up?
A few days ago, our matchmaking company organized a dating event in the city center, specifically tailored for bachelors, masters, and PhD holders. This event attracted hundreds of participants, including many single young professionals from well-known companies.
I'm confused. If this event targeted young male and female professionals, I assume they all had the ability to make a decent living. So why couldn't everyone just pay their share?
Overall, the event was quite successful, with a lively atmosphere on site, and several young couples successfully paired up. It can be said that this was a relatively successful event. However, I was a bit puzzled because, despite the large number of people who signed up, especially male participants, the gender ratio on the day seemed a bit unbalanced. In particular, in sessions with more females, many of the men who had originally registered did not show up. To figure out why these men gave up such a rare opportunity, I followed up with those who were absent. The reasons they gave were varied. Some said they had other arrangements that day and simply couldn't make it. Some said they would rather stay home and play video games than attend such a dating event. Even more shocking were those who bluntly admitted that they hadn't actually wanted to attend. It was their parents who signed them up, and they were not interested at all. I was left wondering, with such a great opportunity to find a partner right in front of them, why didn't these single men seize it?
I think we're just getting to a point where guys are less willing to put themselves out there. And we're also living in a time in which the roles women played in the home have changed drastically. The thing is though, while laws and societal norms are changing, what people want from their partner or a relationship hasn't. Back when we were living with more stricter roles, men would go out so they could provide, and women would look after the home. During these times, and the thousands of years before that, men and women looked for certain traits in each other. While women wanted a man who could provide and protect them and the children, men had a preference for women who were very nurturing. Today, women don't need a man to provide for them because they're more than capable of getting by on their own. However, that primitive part of their brains still wants a guy who's capable of providing, and preferably able to provide what she can or more. The thing is, guys still want a nurturing woman, but if everyone's out there working a 9 to 5, he's kind of losing out on that part of the deal, but is still expected to fulfill things on his end. Because of all this and a bunch of other factors, as these issues that appear to be arising between men and women aren't so black and white, it seems like men are slowly losing the motivation to put themselves out there when it comes to dating. So the question is for you guys, what's the solution?
Actually, I also want to take this opportunity to appeal to all the single people out there. In the future, our company will continue to hold similar high-quality matchmaking events, so don't miss out. Of course, gentlemen, there's no need to feel too much pressure. Even if you don't find the right person in one event, it's no big deal. Just treat it as a chance to make new friends.
Who's gonna pay $140 to get friend-zoned though?
After all, getting to know more female friends can only be beneficial. If you have a scheduling conflict or are too shy to participate in such in-person events, you can always contact me directly, and we can arrange one-on-one meetings with women for you. Don't be shy. Who knows, the opportunity to find a partner might be just around the corner.
I feel like a successful matchmaker has to be someone who really understands people and what motivates them, so they can properly match someone with the right person. Otherwise, you're just throwing mud at the wall to see what sticks. And that's a job I can do on my own.
I really feel a bit helpless. Yesterday, a friend of mine invited me to attend a singles event that he organized. They had invited many people in advance, but in the end, very few men showed up, and most of the participants were older single women with decent jobs. My friend has been in this field for many years and always wants me to participate in his events because they organize similar events every year, whether high-end or low-end, often in cooperation with guilds or companies. But unfortunately, the success rate has never been high. I went to check out the scene. As soon as I arrived, I saw a group of women. They all had a good demeanor, mostly older single women, but there were hardly any men. The few men who did show up were mostly those repeatedly invited by phone. After taking a look, I felt the quality of the event was indeed not high, so I left. As I was leaving, I happened to see two men leaving as well, and I asked them why they were leaving so quickly. I asked them, "There are so many girls here, don't any of them catch your eye?" One of the men replied that they came with a mindset of just giving it a try. For this kind of low-end event, everyone is just going through the motions, knowing the success rate is not high.
This makes sense, and I assume that low-end matchmaking events are much cheaper and attract a different demographic of people altogether. When guys go to these sorts of events, they're probably expecting to go home empty-handed, so the effort they put in is minimal, which probably contributes to them going home empty-handed. If the women at these events are older, and this is a sort of last resort for them, I can definitely see guys going to these sorts of things for some easy action. I don't know if that's typical in China, but I could definitely see that being a thing in the West. Still, dating apps and social media, I don't even know if guys would put in the extra effort to attend an event since they can do all the swiping they want from home, and becoming a paid member on an app like Tinder to increase their chances of matching with someone is still probably cheaper than going to a matchmaking event.
I continued chatting with them and told them that many of the women on site were actually quite good, with good family backgrounds and jobs. I asked why they were still unwilling to choose these women. They candidly admitted that it's not that older women are unacceptable. Women with the right values are still worth considering. But they felt that age is not the biggest obstacle. The key is that many men think about future family planning, especially the issue of having children. If a woman is already 34 or 35 years old and still wants to have 2 children, there might be fertility challenges.
Unfortunately, this is where things can get tricky and difficult for women. While it's more than possible to have a successful pregnancy later on in life, there are more risks involved. Even though there are solutions like IVF, it's not an easy process, and a lot of people don't realize that until they actually start going through it. If women start attending these dating events at 30, 35, or 40 years old, that's a lot of pressure. Pressure to meet the right person and start building a family almost immediately. The problem is, men don't have those same restraints, and probably don't want to rush into getting married or having kids right away, which can put men and women at odds when it comes to dating. If we ever get to the point in which we can birth children outside of the womb, maybe things will be different. God, that would be a game changer. And actually, things might get worse between men and women because the need to form relationships might even be less.
The main issue is that these older women often have very high expectations of men, from housing, cars, education, height, to family upbringing. These requirements are quite high, and many men don't have enough advantages to meet these conditions. So they hesitate and don't want to choose these older single women who, despite their good conditions, come with such high demands. One of the men also said that many women over 30 are very experienced and capable at work. But because of that, their expectations for men have also increased significantly. They want men not only to have high incomes but also to match them in every aspect. For example, if a woman earns 200,000 or 300,000 yuan a year,
which for the record is about $40,000.
She might expect the man to earn at least double that. On top of that, men also need to provide more in terms of material and emotional support. So, men like us really feel we can't afford to marry such women. We feel that the emotional balance in the relationship would be very weak. As a result, they would rather choose someone younger, with lower expectations. Even though a younger woman may not be as capable, she tends to have a gentler personality and isn't as demanding financially. This explains very well why, at offline matchmaking events like this, many men leave after just a glance. It's not that they are picky about the women's age, but rather the additional conditions and expectations these older single women come with that make them feel overwhelmed. Therefore, even if men show up, they quickly leave. This is the reality.
The thing is, what do you do? Even though it's usually men who chase when it comes to dating, at the end of the day, it's the woman who makes the choice to accept or reject. But what happens when men stop chasing? Sure, you can say women could take the lead and make the first move. But for the most part, being a pursuer just isn't in their nature. And while that might change one day, as for right now, this is how things are. Because men and women tend to look for particular traits in each other due to our evolutionary past, it seems like our bodies aren't able to catch up to the rapid developments in technology and how we operate in the world. At least that's what I think.
I strongly advise men not to participate in blind dates. The women you meet during blind dates often have a strong transactional mindset. They will weigh the pros and cons because these women see themselves as sellers in the emotional market. Many of these older single women fail to recognize their own position. Since they have already entered the matchmaking market, it indicates that their options are limited.
This is exactly what I mentioned earlier when talking about guys who might go to these sorts of events, because they see the women there as easy targets for a quick hookup.
Think about it. Top talent usually doesn't go to a job market, right? Similarly, the women who enter the blind date market are generally of lower quality, yet they still think of themselves as premium sellers. When you engage with such women, it's not just about showing off your conditions to successfully match. These older single women often have a lofty attitude, and many times you have to first demonstrate your willingness to invest, even by putting in a lot of effort and resources. Many men don't understand this point. We are all here for a blind date, so why should I spend so much energy pursuing a woman?
This is what I mean. Men don't want to put in the effort anymore because the risk of rejection is too high. And when there are solutions around that require less investment, they can be appealing.
This stems from these women's mindset. A blind date is not about directly discussing cooperation or making a transaction. You need to invest first, just like paying a deposit to show that you have an intention to buy. Only then will these women pick the most suitable partner from those who have shown interest in buying. On the surface, blind dating seems like a shortcut, because you can directly communicate face-to-face with women, feeling like you're closer to the result. But in reality, this shortcut often backfires. The simpler the channel to meet women, the simpler it is for other men to meet her too.
Man, this is so true. And in the end, it makes for even more competition. Unless you can top all the other guys who are interested in the same woman as you, it could be a struggle. While competition to find the best mate has always been there, we weren't always so accessible to the world, which naturally meant there was less competition. Think of it like being the best Street Fighter player on your street back in the early 90s. Well, these days, you wouldn't be competing with the people on your street or in your area. It'd be the whole world. On the flip side, though, now that you're putting your skills up against everyone, not just the people local to you, you could actually become an even better player, better than you could ever be if you only played against people you could already beat. But I'm going off topic. Let's get back to the video.
Which makes the competition even fiercer. On blind dates, you usually encounter those women who are the hardest to deal with, yet whose conditions aren't that good. Therefore, unless it's absolutely necessary, men should never go on blind dates. Blind dating is a way to avoid competition. What are men avoiding by going on blind dates? First, they are avoiding the opportunity to actively meet women on their own. Second, they are avoiding the process of enhancing their own attractiveness. Lastly, They are avoiding the learning process of communicating with women and the ability to learn how to make women fall in love with them. You find all of this too troublesome, and you want to take a shortcut. You don't want to face competition, nor do you want to improve yourself, so you end up paying the price. Dealing with women who are neither high quality nor easy to get, and are even full of tricks and deceptions. This year's 3:15 Evening Gala also exposed the scams on matchmaking platforms. Many of the women shown on these platforms don't even exist, or the women arranged by matchmaking agencies are just employees of the company, professional shills, or actresses. These scams target those men who are lazy, avoid competition, and want to skip steps. This, in fact, reflects the greed of human nature. Do you think you're the only man who thinks this way? There are tens of thousands of men who think the same. So why should good women come to you? This simply doesn't align with the market's supply and demand relationship.
Yeah, I think what he said is pretty spot on. I mean, that was the initial appeal of dating apps for guys. They were a way of putting yourself out there without actually putting yourself out there. But, as this guy said, if you can easily message a woman on a dating app or social media, so can everyone else, which is why a woman's inbox is always full, meaning that your message is likely to go unread, unless you can stand out against the crowd. Anyway, I'm gonna end the video here, but if you want to see the rest of this video, the link will be in the description, and you can check out their other videos too. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed today's video on coffee and popcorn, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.